This week on the TT Show, we show you everything we saw at PAX Australia. NVIDIA could release a gaming handheld in 2025. RTX 5090 pricing. Nintendo's museum is hiding a dark secret. Unreal Engine 6. New artificial cat-like vision. Concord may still be alive. Real-life Spider-Man web fluid. And SpaceX making a milestone catch of the world's largest and most powerful rocket. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT Show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, hello.
How are we?
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, out of us two, I was at PAX last week, PAX Australia.
Yes.
Yes,
I chose not to go.
I was kind of like similar, where it was like a very last minute thing. But there was just like, everybody's there, like, Asus, MSI, and even this year Valve was there because they're bringing the Steam Deck to Australia. This is only like Australia relevant news, but, the Steam Deck's been out in the US for, 2 years now?
Yeah, I know.
They did the OLED model last year, but yeah, they're bringing it to Australia officially, and they actually Valve flew down to PAX to make the announcement there. They had a big booth with like a whole bunch of Steam Decks lined up.
That's awesome.
So that was very cool to see, and obviously I got in touch with Valve and met them there and their representative and was like, hey, what can I do to get one of these to review? And so that's currently in motion, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I get
that is awesome. Yeah, after you telling me about that, and then I saw the email from the rep of the announcement, I was like, oh damn, I kind of wanted to go to see that. There was a bit of a regret on my part there, but I suppose I live vicariously through your images of awesome tech. Most of which is not like, we're not, like you said, there is no real big announcements hardware wise, but what there is at, and this goes for most of these conventions or trade shows or something like that, that has anything to do with gaming and hardware. We have PC case mods, and I am just, if you're a fan of hardware, and personally, I love mods. I would never go out of my way to mod. Like, I don't have the time nor the inclination.
That's like a very specific skill, right? That's like you have to, like, you get a case, but then you have to, like, cut it up or whatever you're going to do. Or like, you have to create like there's an art component to it, right? Like,
absolutely.
Are basically like works of art, like the even though the Alien PC is the headline image, but like the Aftershock Australia, they just like the masters of like PC mods, but they had like this Medusa PC, where it has Medusa and Perseus, where it looks like a stone statue, but like it's on an open case with like the water cooling has got like columns and stuff around it as well, and like you can you look around it, you can see like the hardware in there, you can check all that sort of stuff out. But like, you're just looking at that, like if that was sitting on your desk, that's like an art piece, right? That's something that that just turns heads. It looked so cool. And it's got like a 4090 water-cooled PC, and, and this is like a custom creation where they spent time to dimensions, all that sort of stuff. So, if you wanted to buy this, right, it's not like, hey, I want to get a gaming PC. How much does this one cost? Because they had prices for all this sort of stuff.
Really?
But like, you're looking at like, in Australian dollars, like everything was like 10 grand, 15 grand or something like that.
Wow, usually with mods, there is no pricing because they're one of ones.
That's what they kind of are. They make like the Alien one, which is like got the xenomorph like bursting out of the PC. Like that's a 4090 water cooled rig as well.
It looks crazy.
They're saying like it's valued at, like that was created with 20th Century Studios.
What?
Yep. Yeah, they rebranded up. I get confused.
Oh, that's right, 20th Century. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because they're like owned by Disney now. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was created like with them to celebrate the release of Alien Romulus, the movie.
That's awesome.
And so they were giving that away in a competition. But also, I think they made 2 of them. So there's one that they can take to trade shows as well. Maybe they made a couple. Maybe they made one for like 20th Century Studios' offices as well. Like in. But there's only like a handful of these that get made, but they do slap like a price tag on it. They say like, based on the manpower, the art, the materials, the components, it's like, it's a 10 grand PC basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for those that are listening on the audio, if you head over to the YouTube video, we're showing photos of all of the PCs that we're talking about. But we will do our best to describe what we are looking at. I do like this Shark X PC, Cooler Masters. I think we saw something similar to this at Computex.
Yeah, this is one that you can actually. This is a little bit different because this is something that you can order off the shelf, right? And it's not that they've got like thousands of these, but basically they've, there is like they turned that what was like a one of a kind mod into something that they could produce at scale.
Yeah.
Which means that like, if there's 100 people that want one, they can make 100 of these and they're all going to be exactly the same, which means, engineering all the components, all the different size thingos, and it's actually huge. It's actually like a meter tall. So like if this was sitting on your desk, it'll be like massive, right? And it
doesn't look like that big from the photo, but yeah, that is. I think I remember seeing one at Computex.
Yes, there was one at Computex. Yep.
Yeah.
And
that was big.
Yeah, and so like it costs like $7,000 US to buy it outright, right?
Jesus.
And it's only got like a 4070 Ti Super in it. So
why did they not put a 4090 in this?
It becomes down to like GPU size. You can replace it with like a potential 4080 dual slot because there are ones. Like it's just like component size limitations. So that's why it's only got, and cooling limitations as well. So that's why it's only got like a mainstream, the 14700F CPU in there, the Intel Core i7. So it's not like, the premium best of the best hardware, but that's more of like I don't know, it's weird because it's like a flex, right? Like let's say you had this like a gaming lounge setup, right? Where you've got consoles, a big screen TV, you got like statues and stuff on display, you got gaming posters up, whatever it is. It's like, like you love gaming and that's your setup. You could theoretically just, like have this installed like in a corner there on display, and then run a cable to your big screen TV, and it's like a Steam box or whatever, it's just like a couch gaming rig. Like there is like the only reason to get it is like as a pure luxury item, right? Like it's not a practical PC.
No, not at all. It's definitely it would be crazy if you had that in your gaming room, and then people that aren't into PC hardware come over, and then you're just like, oh, I'll just turn on my PC and just check my email real quick, and you go over to the Shark and like move its fin or whatever, and then it just like comes to life. It would be awesome. I would probably never buy one, but these things are cool to look at as a fan of PC hardware. So you saw the MSI Claw as well. That's something else we saw at Computex.
That's out. Yeah, that's out like early next year. So the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus has the new Lunar Lake processors. Now that those are officially out in the wild, we know that the gaming performance and efficiency is better than the first gen Arc. It'll obviously drivers and game-to-game performance will vary widely, but like the unit was really light, and it's got a bigger 8-inch display than the original Claw. I think the original Claw was pretty much like a prototype sort of thing, whereas like the first handheld to use an Intel chip, it wasn't as good as the ROG Ally. It had some nice features. It was okay, but like if you had to choose between that or the ROG Ally or Legion Go, you would go that.
Yeah,
but that
makes sense.
If they sort out the drivers for this one, I would say this is if the Intel Arc Battle Mage drivers and Lunar Lake drivers are really good for gaming, by the time this comes out, it could be a definite contender because it's lightweight. It's got a big screen, 120 hertz, bright display as well. I can't remember what. I think it's like 500 nits. No, it's IPS, but it is super bright. And I played Cyberpunk on it and Forza Horizon 5. And both of those looked like, obviously, like, these are lower power chips, but they kind of looked like the console versions of the game. Like Cyberpunk running on this thing looked as good as it does on, which is not high praise, as like a PS4 Pro or whatever, like, because the game ran like, was not great on console, right? But like, because it's like way better optimized for PC, and Intel Arc has kind of like been pretty good with Cyberpunk in general. So it was kind of like one of those moments where you're just playing that quality of game like on a handheld, obviously without ray tracing and stuff, but the game still looks great. And it's just like, oh man, I'm just playing Cyberpunk on the go. That's so cool. Like, just having access to all those games on the go is like the reason why, you would want the Steam Deck and et cetera, et cetera. But this seems to be like a really cool second attempt from MSI.
Do we have a price on this?
No.
It says launches early 2025.
That's pretty much
gonna
all
just
we know.
let me guess first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it in US. I'm gonna say $299.
No. Like the ROG Ally is like $5.99 US.
So it's not going to be competitive with the. Oh, okay.
It's going to be the same
if the
price as
Nintendo
a
Switch
gaming
2
console.
is $449.
Yeah, this will be more expensive. These things are more expensive.
These are more expensive.
Because they got more advanced hardware than what Nintendo's going to be using.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And their manufacturing will cost a lot more as well because you're getting all these
So what?
components.
$599?
I would say $5.99 or even $6.99, depending on how they want to price it. Because that seems to be like the price now for gaming handhelds. I know the Steam Deck goes pretty low with like the entry level model, and then a lot of different. I think like Lenovo is toying, or that it's being rumored that they're going to have like a more affordable Legion Go Lite, which is kind of like the Switch Lite, because their full one has detachable controllers. The light ones, then it's going to be like the Switch Lite, where they're not detachable controllers, and it's going to be smaller and more compact, and obviously cheaper. And that's the thing, right? Like these gaming handhelds need to kind of like get down to a sweet spot, and I think $499 US would probably be the sweet spot for something that's like impressively powerful, and can have something like an OLED display and all these great features, like VRR, and like 100 plus hertz and stuff like that. Like to get that sort of thing down to $499, I think would kind of make it a mass market thing, like a PlayStation or an Xbox.
Absolutely. That's where I was kind of looking at. Obviously, you want it to be as cheap as possible, but yeah, the $499, even $399 mark, like that, it would probably never get down to that.
Yeah, like the non-OLED edition, $399 or something.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And then I really think that these kind of handhelds would start taking some market share away from Nintendo, even though they do kind of operate on their own.
Yeah, that's the weird thing.
On their own beep. It's like, but there hasn't been there isn't really a Switch competitor at the price point of what it's at like right now. But if they can squeeze, if you can offer gamers, like you're saying, Cyberpunk 2077 and Forza Horizon 5 on a device that's handhelded at $499, maybe even $399,
lightweight as well,
like that's why wouldn't that steal market share away from Nintendo?
Yeah, that's right, because it is kind of the same market, really, because obviously Nintendo doesn't really sell hardware, right? So like you don't buy a Switch just because it's got an OLED display or this amount of RAM or whatever, or this type of GPU. Like you're buying it for their franchises. So that's like where Nintendo differs. But at the end of the day, like it's the same thing, right? Like the Switch is something that you travel with, right? You take on the go. You play in different rooms around the house, whereas the PC gaming handheld, it's like, oh well, that's the same thing, right? You take it on the go, you travel with it, take your Steam Deck into the lounge room, take it over to a friend's place, like just like you do with the Switch. So yeah, like it is, like it probably is like the same market in a lot of ways, even though they are probably still viewed as separate by most.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I would only get a Switch 2 for the next Smash Bros. And maybe the next Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh,
but
yeah.
If I had to choose between an equivalent priced device that gave me access to Steam, I'm like, well, come on. Like, how many more games am I going to get on Steam?
Yeah. No, I'm the same. Like, I mean, I would get the Switch 2 just for Metroid Prime 4, basically.
Yeah, well, I'm still going to own the Switch 2, but I'm going to get this as well.
But that's the thing, right? That's why I think a lot of Nintendo banks on that, right? Is people buying even if it's not your primary console or gaming thing. Like if you got a PC, if you're a PC gamer or you're a PlayStation gamer, like you would pick up, if you're going to pick up something else, you would pick up the Switch because you've just got access to a different library. Like there's less of a reason to have a PC and an Xbox. You know what I mean? Because it's similar games, PC Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass. 90% of the games are the same. So all you're really getting is something that has the convenience of connecting to a TV. Whereas a Switch is like you've got Mario, you've got Zelda, you've got everything else.
Yeah, and you can connect to the TV if you want to. No, that is very interesting. Well, let's keep it on the handheld talk. NVIDIA, possible handheld.
Yeah, this is something that like you could just say speculation, right? I mean, you could like guess that NVIDIA is working on a new gaming handheld for PC. But yeah, so recently there's been reports that NVIDIA is partnering with MediaTek to create a SoC, which is the the system on chip, like the Ryzen chips that are in gaming ROG Allies, but also like in the new Ryzen AI laptops, where you got your...
That's in smartphones.
Yeah, you've got the Snapdragon stuff. You got your CPU, you've got your NPU for AI, and you've got your GPU for graphics, right? That doesn't necessarily mean gaming, right? Like that you can you can use the hardware encoding, you can use it for just productivity stuff, anything that would be accelerated by a GPU. Now, AMD, Intel, Qualcomm, Microsoft, Copilot Plus PCs, these SoCs are becoming more and more important, but also it's like a new market, right? Where you don't need a discrete graphics card now for ultra thins and laptops and stuff like that. And so the rumors are that it's been multiple times, and now the latest one is that they're basically now they're going to be ready for mass production late next year. This is MediaTek and NVIDIA's new AI chip, which would be a single chip with the CPU, NPU, and NVIDIA graphics all on there, which would be GeForce, right? Like RTX. That's what their graphics are. And the rumor is that there's Lenovo, Dell, HP, Asus that are all going to be wanting these to put in like the the Zen books, right? Like the stuff that we saw with the there's Intel versions of the Zen book with these single chips. There's the AMD versions. So maybe there'll be the MediaTek NVIDIA version as well. Now those chips will be for productivity, AI, but then they'll have GeForce RTX graphics, which we know is, I guess, the most supported on the PC front from an app perspective. Like the Adobe suite all have RTX accelerated stuff. Like DLSS is a part of Premiere. The AI upscaling, all that stuff is like a part of the Adobe suite just on the creator side. And then you add in gaming and you've got all that too. So with all of that, so I put up together like a article that pretty much adds all that up and then adds the other layer, which is that if GeForce is the number one brand for gaming, and we discussed that last couple of weeks, where it's like 80% market share, 85%, and then that remaining 15% is mostly made up of chips like this, right? Not actually discrete graphics cards. Like Radeon GPU market share has decreased dramatically in recent years for laptops and desktop. So if this is a new market, especially now that you've got the Steam Deck, you've got the ROG Ally, and these things if you add all the PC gaming handhelds up, you're looking at millions of units potentially that have been sold already, and that's going to be a growing market. If it taps into the Switch thing, gaming on the go, it's something that's like a wow factor. Like when I was playing on the claw with Cyberpunk, it's just like, wow, Cyberpunk, I'm just in my hands. I can, not tethered to a desk, not tethered to a desktop or a laptop or a PowerPoint. So that's a brand new market, and that market, NVIDIA has 0% market share. There is no PC gaming handheld out now with GeForce graphics. There is no ultralight, ultra thin productivity ZenBook from ASUS with GeForce graphics. I mean, there is ones where you have like the laptop GPUs, but they obviously a bit bigger, different sort of cooling. They're not like the Copilot Plus PCs or like that. This whole like ultralight, long-lasting battery. Battery will last you all day, etc., etc. They have 0% market share in that space because they don't have a chip. So this solves that, right? So like if you're NVIDIA and you have them also the mind share in terms of like PC gaming, and now let's fast forward 2 years from now, and PC gaming handhelds have like captured like a decent chunk, right? So now you've got laptops, desktop PCs, and handhelds. And if NVIDIA doesn't have an option there, that doesn't really make sense, right? Even from a business perspective, even if it's just to say we've got the best version of that, even if it's just to ensure that, like, hey, if you want gaming on the go, there is a GeForce option, and they've got the tech for it too, because DLSS is really good at lower resolutions. AMD is now looking at, they've announced that FSR4, which is going to be AI based. The reason why it's AI based is primarily because of the handheld market, which obviously they're making money on. They know that, there's all these handhelds using the Ryzen chips because the integrated RDNA Radeon graphics is better than anything else at the moment. So if they've gone to that extent, then this is going to be something that either they need to get into or it's inevitable. And that's my conclusion, is that like it's just a matter of time. Like if they've got this being produced for late next year, it's just a matter of time, and it's probably going to be like a gaming handheld coming around that same time with an NVIDIA chip.
What if you were to put on a release window for this potential product? What would you predict?
Second half of next year.
And what do you think it would be called?
I think it won't be NVIDIA making their own one. They don't make. There's no NVIDIA branded specific laptops. They would partner with ASUS, right? Maybe the ROG Ally 2 is going to be exclusively running on this chip, right? They would make sure that it is on some sort of like high quality device. They're not going to put the R&D in like making controllers and joysticks and and displays and things like that. I don't think they're going to go to that extent, because that's not what they do at the moment at all, really.
So do you think NVIDIA is essentially holding like an auction for this partnered MediaTek chip, and brands like MSI, like with the Claw, ASUS with the Ally, are pretty much throwing money at NVIDIA to buy exclusive rights to producing with this chip?
Well, potentially, because I don't really know how that side of the business works. Like you hear stories of like NVIDIA, like if you want to have our chip, you got to do this, you got to do that. There's been stories of that before. Like, there's stories of like NVIDIA and Nintendo's relationship being pretty frayed just based on NVIDIA not really because they're both like very, Nintendo as a company is known for being Nintendo, right? Like it's our way or the highway, and NVIDIA's known for being like, we do things our way, and
that's just the way that it goes.
And we get two companies that operate at a similar sort of speed, they're going to butt heads. So maybe and I think NVIDIA would probably be like, okay, who wants it? And we're only gonna pick two of you, like sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like it could be something exclusive.
Next question would be the performance targets. I would just guess. Oh, and I suppose attached to that would be, are we going to see like a switch-like feature where you'd be able to plug this device into a dock of some kind and then get more performance? Or do you think it's just going to be a straight handheld with no...
I think there'll be a straight handheld, and like that's one thing that I think PC gaming handheld makers like ASUS and all these other people, MSI, like they need to like just release like an add-on dock, like either as part of the thing or like something that's cost effective, where you can just put next to your TV, where you just slide it in, and it does the same thing where it's USB-C converted to HDMI 2.0 and just like the Switch, and and also like power delivery, and the extra power delivery can overclock the integrated GPU. So instead of running at let's say 18 watts, like it'll run at like 30
or 35 or something like that.
And that'll give you like an extra like 10-15% performance. It's not like double the power,
it's
the
not
performance,
1-to-1,
as we know. We know that from desktop GPUs, but it makes a difference, right? So yes, I think that's a smart option, and that's one way that they could differentiate by actually having like a dock with it that's like, okay, now you can boost your performance even more.
Yeah. Performance target, I would say handheld 1080p 120 hertz FPS. I would like to see 144, even though the difference between those two is, you could argue, negligible. However, that is 144 is super nice, and I would love to be able to have that in my hands. And I think it'll be, if there is a docked version, 1440p at 60 with upscaling, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Like DLSS will be a major component, and AI will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, as it should, right? Because
that's what it's there for.
Because efficiency is king for a handheld, and AI is is more efficient for everything when it comes to.
If they could get like 20 hours of battery life on this thing, as well.
Or I mean, even like the Switch, like that's
well, the Switch is 7 years old. Like this is. This new I'm just saying, like, with the efficiency of NVIDIA's hardware.
I think if they can do 8 hours, that'll be great.
I want like something crazy.
Like 4 hours to 6 hours max or something. They're not like
at fully maxed game.
Yeah. Like these things require like you to charge them. Like you need like a battery pack or something.
Yeah, but it would be good if I didn't have to. or like if I could go for a flight to Taiwan with a handheld and play Cyberpunk for 9 hours straight. That would be good. I want to see double digits for these kind of things, because some people game for, a long time. And like on planes and stuff like that, it sucks when your device goes flat. And I think that's what that's how Apple markets its laptops. Like there is so many of their advertising where they show that the air can be used for an entire flight, and there's someone sitting on a plane like there's like there's stuff like that. I would like, if this is real, which I do believe you. I think it's
like inevitable. Like that's my point, is that like if you look at all these statistics and what's happening, it's like if they're not, that means they're kind of like so over. I mean, they're so far into just pure AI and data center stuff that they're like their GeForce division is just not getting as much R&D as anywhere else. That's what it would probably mean, because like if you took AI out of if you took like the data center stuff out of their picture and just look at their gaming sector, like if you're going to grow your gaming sector as NVIDIA, you would have a GeForce handheld.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, and having it interoperable with PC in some way would also attract hardcore PC gamers. I think that is a no-brainer in some ways. And also, I just thought of a question then. I wonder if this is true, and NVIDIA are, let's just say partnering with Asus for the next Ally. I wonder how Nintendo feels about this.
Yeah, like I just wonder how Nintendo feels in general about the Steam Deck.
Oh, everyone does,
and all the PC gaming handhelds, whether or not they factor that into, because like they say, we don't compete with PlayStation and Xbox anymore. Like they mentioned that, like we're not competing with them, but obviously they keep track of how many PS5s are being sold versus Switches and like anybody else. But I'm wondering if they would never admit that that the Steam Deck is a competitor to the Switch.
No, of course not.
But surely
but it is interesting to think that NVIDIA will be powering the next gen Switch. But if this is true, then we already know from NVIDIA's hardware and Nintendo's position on performance, that this console will be way more powerful.
Maybe there is
handheld.
Maybe there's an agreement with Nintendo that it's like you can't release any, like you can't release a SoC for any other primarily gaming handheld. And maybe that's why we haven't seen another Shield since the original Switch.
Yeah, because I can't, again, Nintendo dicks. They are. And I can see them being like, you can't release another SoC for something else. There's no way.
Yeah.
We can't
you
buy
can-
100 million of these NVIDIA chips to power our coming Switch, and then like 2 months later, or like if the rumor timelines are correct, let's say the Switch 2 comes out March next year, and you're saying the second half of next year, it's like, what, 6 months later, NVIDIA drops another a NVIDIA powered handheld console that just blows the Nintendo Switch 2 out of the water. Nintendo would never be like, oh yeah, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like a new wrinkle. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that is it's
Which would be a shame.
interesting.
But like,
It is interesting.
I think performance-wise, if they can hit RTX 4060 laptop performance, then it'll be pretty good.
That would be good, 100%.
Because then in docked mode, you can overclock that, right? You just run it in low-powered mode when it's in handheld mode, and then when it's docked, you run the 4060 laptop GPU at full power, and you get extra performance.
Yeah. I think regardless of when, I do think, regardless of if this is happening, I agree that it's when. I don't agree that it's going to be next year. I think Nintendo, if this is going in this direction, would have put some kind of agreement and bind on, like, for at least 2 years, I would say. So I think this is probably not going to be a next year thing. It'll probably at the very earliest be a year after. So Nintendo has at least 1 year of solid Switch 2 sales. But I do agree that it is an inevitability. And if it doesn't happen, then like you said, the GeForce team, they're not utilizing their technology or their partnerships to the best of their ability. We want this device. Like, this is...
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And look, if it doesn't happen, the MediaTek processor with NVIDIA is going to be sick regardless.
Apparently it's like
someone's going to use it in an incredible way, and yeah, we're going to be happy about it. That's for sure.
And to be honest,
very
like
cool.
even one of those in like a mini PC that you can connect to a TV could be like a little PC gaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a tiny one, right? Like, and it'll have whatever chip is on there. Like, I'm assuming it's going to be capable enough to run like most games at 1080p very, very easily.
1080p 60, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, I would 100%, I want a little mini PC for the lounge room, because sometimes I drag this big PC down there just to change it up, just like, so I get a little different, like, so I don't stare at the same four walls.
24/7.
I drag my girlfriend goes out to work for, like, she's at work, she'll be at work till 9 o'clock tonight, and right now it's 2 p.m. I'll bring the PC down there and just plug it into the 65-inch OLED, and I'll just sit there like, whoa, this is huge. But I don't want to have to drag the PC down there, you know. So a little PC that's powered by NVIDIA and MediaTek would be nice. But let's move it along. Next story on the menu. Let's keep it NVIDIA.
And
5090.
Oh, yeah, is that the next one?
Oh, sorry. Did you want to go to the Windows story?
No. Yeah, no, it's the 5090. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a quick one, right? So there's been a lot of debate about the price of the GeForce RTX 5090. It's the flagship. There's no competition, and it's apparently got 32 gigs of RAM, I'm pretty sure. 32 gigs of GDDR7 RAM, 20,000 CUDA cores. Just basically a beast of a Blackwell GPU for desktops. And with the 4090 is still a monster, right? And the 4090 is going to be a powerful GPU for at least another 3-4 years. In terms of, and by powerful, I mean top of the line, right? Like, you're not going to have no issue maxing out any game. So the 5090 is going to be an absolute monster. And if the 4090 was launched at $1,599 USD, that's the MSRP. So $1,600. Let's round it up when you get to what's $1 when you're talking about that amount of money. So if that's the price, and they obviously increased that dramatically from the 3090 and the 3080, the 30 series. The 4080 went up to $1,100 or $1,200, whatever it was, and you got $1,600 for the 4090. So there's like people's, have been speculating that the 5090 could cost as much as $2,500 US for a single GPU, a gaming
Jesus.
GPU. Which even at that price, people would buy it. Like, let's not kid ourselves. When you're getting into like $1,500 to $2,000 or $2,500, $3,000, like, if you're even considering spending that amount of money on a single gaming PC component, price isn't the concern here. It's performance and having the best of the best. And it's like buying a sports car, right? Like, you don't buy a Porsche. You know, buy a Porsche over a Toyota because it's like, well, that makes more sense monetarily.
Well, this is why there's $1,000 difference between the 5080 with the 16 gig and the 1590. If you're looking at the higher end of the price estimates.
That's right. And so the initial pricing, quote unquote, leak said that it could be $2,500, but then Copilot7 Kimmy on X, he's the person that leaked the specs or confirmed the specs for the 5090 and 5080 and the 5070 that everybody's running with. In terms of like the CUDA core count, the memory configuration, the bandwidth, the power. That's what every outlet is using as a credible source for the 50 series in terms of specs and hardware. And that's just based on a track record where, for the 30 series and 40 series, he was a go-to source for that sort of information.
He's clearly someone, sorry to cut you off there, but is clearly someone, he would know someone on the engineering, or the factory team. He would know, where do you think this source is? Just a little sidebar. This has got to be a factory though. He's posting like SKUs and gigahertz and like
it would have to be some sort of related like closely to production, but also like he seems to know quite a bit. Like it's like he predicted this 600 watt thing like so long ago. It's like that's what they're targeting.
It's got to be a manufacturing line somewhere.
Like he's privy to information that he could just be an NVIDIA employee, where even it's even known.
Where's my tinfoil hat?
And it's just like them creating, it's not even tinfoil hat, right? It's guerrilla marketing 101, which is like you get other people to, even if you just fake it, right? Like, there's, you just get random, or you just tell like this person, and you're sanctioned to do so. I'm going to give you this information. Here's what you can say. And you have that contact within NVIDIA and that's, and it's all,
it's all, like Tom Holland in Marvel that he accidentally leaks all the it's like he's the sloppiest actor ever. Like he can't even pretend to be himself, and he just leaks Marvel information accidentally, like opening up like it says confidential like across the front of the thing. He's opening up on a live stream. It's like, well, of course Marvel. I think maybe Tom Holland was. Like he accidentally leaked something once, and then it wasn't that bad, and then Marvel was like, "Oh, geez, thank God that didn't go down the way that we thought it was going to." And then they were like, "Wait a second, we can use your stupidity as like a weapon. Let's weaponize this and guerrilla market this." It's like, "Oh, Tom Holland dropped another thing," and then it's like headlines. Maybe this is like Copilot.
Exactly. So. He's basically saying that I don't believe there will be a significant price increase for the RTX 5090, which means that there is going to be a price increase for the 50 series. I think at this point that's a given, just based on everything being costing more, like the PS5 Pro is a price increase. Consoles haven't dropped in price. And even if NVIDIA could release them at the same price because the 40 series prices were inflated and seemed way overboard in terms of the increase, especially on the high end, that keeping it the same would actually make a lot more sense. And better for consumers. So him saying that I don't believe there will be a significant price increase for the RTX 5090 is that the discussion is obviously to increase the price. And when it comes to GPUs, price ranges might be discussed, but no price is actually locked down until the 11th hour. there's been cases even recently where AMD has changed the price of something after they've already set the price in a pre-release embargo and saying, well, actually, it's now going to be this price. So, like, prices can change right up until the day before it hits retail for a GPU or a week before. So it's not something that is set in stone. So if somebody says a year before it comes out, hey, the 5090 is going to, somebody at NVIDIA told me it's going to cost this much, even if that's a figure that one of the numbers that they've thrown out, that's never going to be concrete, right? Like, it's not hardware specs. It's not like how many cores are in there. Like, price is fluid when it comes to these sort of things, and all tech in general. So like a bump would be maybe $200, maybe it's $1,800 instead of $1,600. That's not a significant price increase, but it is a price increase.
Yeah. Just back on the Copilot stuff. So Copilot commented on Anthony's tweet. I just want to highlight this real quick. And Anthony from Tweaktown, who was the previous GPU reviewer, was talking about the RTX 50 series. The Moore's Law is dead was the source. And Copilot just wrote totally fake underneath that. And
he's done that under a number of Moore's Law is dead predictions and quote unquote leaks. So according to, one leak source, he says that, Moore's Law is dead is not a credible leak source, especially for GeForce and NVIDIA stuff.
Yeah, so take that information with however you want to.
Yeah, and like that's sort of like predicting that'll be like anywhere between $2,000 to $2,500. That's just like throwing a $500 window out there on the wall, and like, even if, like, if let's just say there's no actual source for that, then you could just throw that number on the wall and be like, yeah, that seems about right. Like, if there is like a 30, what's the 30% range? It sits in there, right?
Yeah. See, the problem with leaks, and you're totally right there, you're just throwing numbers at the wall. It's kind of like, to bring it back to conspiracy theorists, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists that will just cast so many different predictions, and let's call these nets to catch fish. And this has the exact same for leaks as well, very similar to, and specifically the Moore's Law is dead source, his sources in quotation marks. It's like, well, if he throws out enough predictions, one of them's going to stick, one of them's going to land. And then they point to that one and they go, oh, look, that one. I was right. It's like, yeah, but you casted like 50 casts before that.
That's how, like, like the Nostradamus type of, like psychics, like that's how they work, right? Where it's like definitely. You throw as many ideas out there, and like, one of them's going to land, and it could be as specific as a specific world event happening in a specific location. Like, if you rattle off 100 different things and one of them lands specifically, you'd be like,
yeah, and only talk about that one.
How did they know? Like, sort of thing. Yeah. And also as well, there is a case of misinformation, right? That companies would gladly throw out there. So NVIDIA could tell its partners something while it's doing something else. And
100%.
Like they would keep things close to their chest, and then a partner will leak out something, and then that goes out to this source, and it's a credible source, right? But the information is actually false to begin with.
Yeah,
like it was just thrown out there as misdirection. There's no way of knowing, but like based on the track record, and Copilot basically admitting that he doesn't know the price in his statement, but he's from what he believes, which is obviously based on the current talks or whatever discussion he's heard around pricing, is that it's going to increase, but it's not going to be a significant increase.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
But that could change as well. Like, and he says, I don't believe, which is not like set. It's not set in stone either, because like I said, prices are fluid, and NVIDIA could turn around and say, Blackwell AI GPUs are sold out for the next 12 months. Let's milk these for all they're worth, because people are going to be buying them for AI as well. Let's 100%. Not kid ourselves. Like, these aren't just gaming GPUs. Developers are going to be buying them. AI developers are going to buy them.
Yeah, look, so the tech industry, every day we wake up, something crazy has happened. That some piece of tech something's on fire, something's leaked. Like, You know, it's the industry within 24 hours, within 8 hours of you going to sleep, can just shift monumentally. And NVIDIA is a part of that industry. And yes, they do create the tectonic shifts sometimes, but they also have to react to the market. So something could happen leading up to the launch of these Blackwell GPUs that dictates a price change. That like they have to respond with a price change. So yeah, you're totally right. With pricing can be fluid. Well, pricing is fluid.
And I think if it does launch at an obscene price, that's just going to be based on demand for Blackwell AI.
Absolutely, hardware. Yeah. Look, if I was to give my personal prediction, I think they are going to be more expensive, and I'm basing that prediction off. I mean, we're getting smaller nodes are more expensive to process. The hardware itself is more sophisticated. It's more complicated. It's more efficient. It's
R&D, just
it's the prices for across all fabrication is going up, so it's not surprising to me. And then also the last thing that you said, which was the Blackwell demand, is all of the AI GPUs for them. I'm pretty sure what is it, the H200s?
Yeah,
all sold out
for a year,
for an entire year of production.
Yeah, and production
that's insane.
Is only just starting to kick into full gear, right? Like it's not even.
They haven't even turned it on yet.
It's not like as if these things aren't being mass produced.
We haven't even seen the performance.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything.
They're sold out.
Like it's just so weird, and there's no competition as well. Like this was what we were kind of expecting. Like you were kind of like dreading it, like based on you've seen how the 40 series generation played out with pricing and stuff. Like that didn't stop people buying the 4090. But then again, the 5090. Doesn't matter what price it is a Halo product that
definitely
will be judged accordingly, right? So like even with the 4090, it was way more priced, like way more expensive than the 3090. But that sort of like that performance jump was like, I mean, you're just treating it based on like, oh, this is like an incredible piece of hardware, right? But it's not, it's not mass market. You can't really recommend it. You can just
you don't expect people to as well. Yeah, like you these are like I kind of view them as more like the Ferrari of PC hardware. You know what I mean? Like if you're an enthusiast, even if you're an enthusiast that cares about performance to price, I would still steer you towards, let's say, the 5080, because I know that I would say predict that the 5090. Hey,
if anybody asked me like what GPU to get, I would say 4070 Super.
4070 Super, yeah, for the average person. But if you're like, if you would consider yourself an enthusiast,
4080 Super,
but you still care about price, you don't have unlimited money, like bonkers money.
That's
4080. Right. 4080 is where it's at.
And that's why I think the 5080 is going to be the more interesting launch, because
I agree.
If it's the same price as the 4080 Super or $100 more, it's still a few $100 cheaper than the 4090, and apparently it's 15% faster than the 4090 or whatever it is, way more faster than the 4080, and just not much more than the 4080. Like that kind of hits like it's basically people would buy that as a cheaper 4090.
Definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree with that. And yeah, look, regardless, this launch is going to be very interesting. My prediction is, we are going to see a significant significant, probably a bad word there, but we are going to see a price hike. And look, that's just the way that it goes, unfortunately. I would love it. Everyone would love it to be cheaper, but you can't get more sophisticated tech with at the current, unless there is some like technological breakthrough or ceiling that is achieved where suddenly it becomes really cheap to manufacture silicon at 2 nanometers or whatever the hell we're at.
One nanometer or.
I don't even know what happens when we hit 0. What happens?
I don't even know how they even got it to this point, but like it's just going to be dramatically more. There just has to be like a leveling off point, you would think, like, because
0.5 nm.
Well, I mean, like NVIDIA has switched from the traditional Moore's law of hardware doubles in transistor count and all this sort of stuff every every 2 years, and that means like the power and performance and efficiency doubles as well, like every however many years, and that's going to continue. But then at a certain point, like now, it's just so much more cost prohibitive to even consider that. So like their whole thing is that, well, it's like AI has taken over as the performance multiplier.
Yeah. No, well, we shall see. Let's move on to some games. Did you want to go to Unreal 6, or did you want me to talk about the decrepit corpse that is Concord?
Yeah, let's talk about Concord, and then
You mean it's corpse?
Yeah, and then we'll touch on Unreal 6 and Nintendo's dark secret.
Ooh, I wonder what Nintendo has in its basement at its museum. I reckon it's a really, really sad Luigi. It's
powered by his tears.
Yeah. No, but while I do obviously jokingly say that Concord is a corpse, it might not be a corpse, because if you're a corpse, you're dead. Might not be dead entirely.
So it's a
zombie. Are still getting death rattles out of this game, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. But I think we talked about it previously on the podcast, probably ad nauseum. This was Sony's biggest failure yet. We'll just do a quick recap of it. They invested most of their money in what appears to be cinematics. The development of the game was shaky, and insiders said that there was a toxic toxic positivity work environment, which would be like an incubation of no valuable introspective criticism on the title that they're making, which led to them releasing a $40 Overwatch competitor that I think it made like $4 million, but Steam concurrent players didn't get above 1,000, and as a result, Sony refunded everyone, and now the game appears to be shelved. However, the game, because it didn't reach critical mass, was also pulled down. So no, the game, that was a part of the refunds as well, because if a game doesn't reach critical mass, like an online shooter, there is not enough people to join the lobbies. You can't play the game. So bye, Concord, completely pulled. Sony's biggest failure ever in Sony Interactive Entertainment. I should say,
it's one of the biggest video game flops of all time.
Yes, it is. They made exactly $0 from at least, now the 400 million was, that tidbit of information was sourced from insiders and has not been confirmed. But I think we are going to get
8 years of development. It's like it is 8 years, with 8 years of development and a huge team that they bought a studio. I'd say it's like minimum 100 to 150 million has been.
That's where I would put it as well.
Yeah,
we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, like $100 million plus, which is just an absurd amount of money to make exactly $0 on. So now the question. This is the question. What do we do? What does Sony do with Concord? What would you do with Concord? You've got this game that no one cares about sitting on your shelf, and you spent $100 million trying to make it cool.
Erase it from history, right? Just like remove all references from it, from all your sites and publications, and never speak of it again, and then give it like a few months or a year and people won't talk about it. Then it'll become legend. And then there'll be physical copies that people didn't return for refunds that'll be worth a lot of money, and then people will talk about it in a fun way. And I think that's how you salvage it, right?
And that's when you release it again.
No, you just bury it. Keep it
so
buried.
Your suggestion for Sony is to Thanos snap Concord away.
Well, what do you do? Like, nobody was interested in the game. Nobody played it during the open beta. So you're going to have to retool every single character design, every map. Apparently, like, the shooting mechanics were fine, so maybe you need to find something to make it appealing. And if it's not appealing in its current state, then you have to pump a lot more money into that to do it. And then what do? Then you re-release it as a free-to-play title.
100%. I think that's what's going to happen.
Does that reduce any risk? No. It probably increases the risk because it's already a failure, right? It already failed once.
So it can't fail twice.
Of course it can.
How do you,
there's bigger
how do you fail twice? No one likes it. No one's not going to like it more.
Yeah, well, it's just going to be a shoulder shrug again.
Yeah, but I think look, they're not going to recoup $100 million at least. But
it's fascinating.
The story, it appears that Concord is getting some form of, or it's definitely getting updates, because Steam and data miners have found that almost daily its Steam files are being updated. If it was dead and buried, gone, like 6 foot under, why are developers still working on it?
Yeah, okay. Like maybe, yeah. And I think like the thing you mentioned, like how they, we discussed previously as well, was that how they apparently created like a year's worth of weekly cinematics, or at least, you know, they were in production. Like, I don't know if they were all completed or anything like that, but like, you know, with
that's a lot of money.
High quality film like animation and voice work and little vignettes that are like, you know, if they're like 60 seconds each, you know, add it all up for every single week, it's a lot. So like if that, maybe it was like they don't want to bury that, and you know, maybe they think that secret level show that's going to have a Concord episode somehow.
Like, I can't wait for the Concord episode.
Yeah, I know, same.
It's my favorite. I hope it's just 30 minutes of a tire fire, and then we just watch a tire fire burn.
I don't think. I actually think that they may not air it. Maybe they'll just like, I don't know, like what. It's going to be so weird. It'd be like, here's an episode about all these characters
that no one knows.
You don't know and you don't care about, and then you'll be like, when you see them, like, why these guys look so bland. Maybe like, yeah, I mean, and if they're doing it, like, I think it's going to be like a small scale reboot. I don't think I
definitely think that, and it was my prediction from the start of this thing, just considering how much money Sony has poured in, at least $100 million, I would say. I reckon it's closer to 400 million, but I reckon at least 100 million. And look, people are chatting about it right now. For them to recoup any money, they have to go free to play. You can't re-release it for half the price. The game has to go free to play, and then all of the factors that you were saying are totally true. The game wasn't designed with free to play intention, like from the get-go. It was designed with a price tag. And for you can't just, I think a lot of gamers out there or fans of video games can think that you can just re-upload it to Steam and then just take the price off of it. It's like, no, this is not how this works. It's like you have to almost pull out the like endocrine system of the game. It's like a critical part of infrastructure, and then put in another part of critical infrastructure for this to work. So I wrote in my article that was kind of like summarizing it in the most concise way possible. In that case, it makes sense that Sony will want to try and at least recoup some of their investment back through a free-to-play business model that likely involves a battle pass type structure that features microtransactions in the form of cosmetics. That is something all gamers know that. That's, you know, par for the course kind of thing with free-to-play. However, it isn't as simple as deciding Concord is now free-to-play and re-releasing it. Concord was originally developed without any free-to-play business models in mind, meaning the game has no infrastructure to support such a model, especially if Sony wants to lean heavily in that direction with countless microtransactionable cosmetics. Which, look, if you've put $400 million or $100 million or however, I reckon if they release it free to play, it's going to be riddled with them. Oof. But many microtransactionables for them kids to buy.
Yeah, for characters they obviously care about and love.
Nah, but give me that shiny gun, Kosta. Give me it.
Yeah, like, but all that stuff takes time, right? Like like Epic with like Fortnite, right? They have like teams that work on different seasons that they leapfrog. Blizzard does that with Overwatch and Diablo and stuff like that as well. And like, there's a huge component, like to create new skins for every single season requires like a big team. Like that's like, they obviously didn't have that infrastructure plan, like you said. Like that's like it's not just a free to play thing. It is how you structure the development as well. Like it's like, okay, we're going to this season's going to have this free battle pass tier. It's going to have the premium tier. So we need a premium tier team working on premium cosmetics, not 24/7, but like that's their job, right? But then we also need to work out what the free content's going to be. Like none of that was in place now. Like, that's a complete change of their business model. Their business model, as far as we know, was they said they were just going to, they kind of knew the writing was a wall, I think, because they didn't really announce big plans for post-season
the marketing
content.
was next to nothing.
Yeah, they kind of knew ahead of it that this was not going to hit. Obviously, they didn't expect it to be the biggest flop in video game history, but then again, but yeah, so they kind of like, if they're making updates to Steam, like I don't even know if it will be ready by the end of the year. Like it could take.
Oh, no, I think this is a next year kind of job.
Like a 6 months at least to even get it to a point, and they may even just go like early access. And just have it like, do like a soft launch. Like, because I think they need to test the waters with certain things. Like, because launching Concord as like this big new shooter obviously did not work. So if you're going to relaunch it, I think you need to maybe even have early access where you just be open and just say like what feedback you get is how we're going to, if it's constructive, then we're going to incorporate into the game. We're going to, like the early access model on Steam is very cool when it's done well. Like, and there's been examples, like Hades, and it doesn't have to be a multiplayer game where they release like, this is our game, this is the concept, this is the mechanics. The controls are usually pretty tight. They got it. There's something there, and then people play it and they go, okay. Then it's not just balance changes. It's like they see what people are doing, people providing feedback, and then they start adding features that wouldn't be there if they were developing in a vacuum or in like without community input. So I think Concord, if it is going to return, will need to be they'll need to
community assistance.
Yeah, they'll need to engage with the community in an early access style model.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Just to put a bow on this story here, Sony has found, I'm just going to read the last couple of paragraphs from my story here. Sony has found itself between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, they can shelve Concord, write the entire project off as a loss, and move on from the embarrassing release. On the other hand, they can try and recoup some of their investment by investing more money into making Concord a viable free-to-play title, which is through what you were saying about all of the cosmetics, the microtransactionables. Like, these things can't just be randomly AI generated. You have to have people make these. They have to be unique enough, etc., etc. Not to mention, like, the programming infrastructure that the game currently lacks if a free-to-play is where you want to, where the title is heading. If I were to guess what Sony would decide, I believe Concord will eventually return as a free-to-play title with a fresh marketing campaign. This will most likely happen after the PS5 Pro has launched, as I think Sony will want to be able to display its new free-to-play arena shooter on its new PS5 Pro. I don't think we'll see Concord, especially given how much money Sony has invested into this title, and the insider reports saying that Sony officials thought it was going to be, it was like, quote unquote, a Star Wars like project. Yeah. It was the future. This is a quote, the future of PlayStation. So like, they were betting huge on this thing. And I bet you the state of play, this is a complete opinion, my personal take on this.
I agree.
The state of play was meant to finish with a huge, big Concord, like there was meant to be some Concord content in there. I reckon that they were betting on the release of this being huge. Then no one played it. In fact, people didn't even hear about it. And then what they heard, they laughed at. And then they were like, no way. Poor reception. State of play comes out within the next week, couple of weeks or days. I can't remember, but it was approximately around the same time. And that was somewhat disappointing, besides the Ghost of Tsushima sequel coming out. And it felt kind of dry. Like, where's the big title? It's like, well, this was what Sony was betting on.
And they were betting on this style of game and have been for the past couple of years. Like, they cancelled the Naughty Dog's Last of Us multiplayer game, and Naughty Dog came out and said, look, either we become a live service studio and then all we're doing is updating Last of Us multiplayer for the next 6 years, or we scrap the project because it wasn't quite where we needed it to be, and we just shift our focus back to what we do best, single player games. And I think that's what Sony is probably doing internally across its entire PlayStation portfolio of studios, is that they're now, like, obviously they've got other multiplayer games coming. Apparently there's a Horizon MMO, there's like another shooter, like a what's that game, the heist game on PC, starts with Payday.
What is it?
Yeah,
Payday, yeah.
Yeah. So they've got their own Payday style game from a new studio that they acquired. That kind of looks lame because it was like a CG trailer of, like, like edgy, we pulling crimes and stuff, and it's like, all right, yeah, that doesn't look like anything. But I guarantee, like, based on when Concord was released, that they already had a PS5 Pro patch already working on up and running, as they were showcasing all these games that that had PS5 Pro patches. Like, it's not like they appeared a week before the announcement. The PS5 Pro has probably been locked in for a long time now, and their own internal studios have already had patches ready for 6 months or more, because like, they're going to launch with like 20-30 games that are going to have PS5 Pro updates. Like, that's not like slapped together at the last minute. They're going to have those
they're ready
months in advance.
Yeah.
So having it being PS5 Pro enhanced is a given. And based on like the reception to the PS5 Pro, it's like it's selling out. The $699 price doesn't mean anything, because I think that's an enthusiast price, and that's an enthusiast market, and the enthusiast market wants the most powerful console.
Definitely. And it's the people that missed out on the PlayStation. Like, I was one of them. When the PlayStation 5 Pro, the PS5 came out, it was almost impossible to get here in Australia. There was
for almost a year.
For a year, and then it got to the point where 2 years go by. I know the hardware inside and out. Like, there's no real surprises for me. I'm like, fresh. Maybe I'll just wait to the PlayStation 5 Pro. It just got too long into the cycle that I'm like, I'll just wait for the Pro to come out. And now we're here. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably going to end up getting this, even though I did criticize the price point. It's like, well, I haven't played any of the Sony exclusive games that I've played. All of the ones that have come to PC.
We criticized their presentation.
That's
first
it.
And
yeah,
foremost.
That's true.
It was the way that they showed it, the way they explained it, and the way they just dropped the price was like, okay. And then you see like the Digital Foundry, the recent videos and like the recent hands-on, and they're all like saying, oh, it's a night and day difference. The PSSR, the PISA, the DLSS equivalent. That's what people are calling it. That, like, in Final Fantasy 16, I think it is, or 11, or whichever, or 14. That's the multiplayer one, whichever one it is.
420.
Yeah. That is a night and day, because like the previous version was running a low resolution on PS5 with FSR 1 or 2.0 upscaling, and it looked kind of like blurry, right? It's like, it's kind of like, it's like, it looks smeary and blurry. Obviously not native, and then with their AI upscaling, and as well as the beefier performance, right? So it's not just, but the AI upscaling is now making it look crisper and more detailed, and it's not on par or close enough to DLSS that you're like, okay, this is a game, and they're calling it a game changer, right? And so like Sony should have like said that, yes, we've got more powerful ray tracing, and then showed you what that ray tracing can do, but they didn't like really sell the features, right? Like, now other people are, and like the console is selling itself.
Yeah.
Sony didn't really do a great job of selling the PS5 Pro. The PS5
I agree.
Pro is
with that.
Selling itself.
Let's keep it games. Talk to me about Unreal Engine 6. Or what I know about Unreal Engine 5 is that I'm in love with it. I dream about it. It's something that I think about late at night when I'm alone. And I'm sure Unreal Engine 6 will replace my relationship I have with Unreal Engine 5. Right? She's better. Right?
Did I even put the link to that story in there?
Well, I'm looking at it.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So Unreal Engine 5 is pretty incredible in terms of like, the nanite and the lumen ray tracing, and like that Matrix demo that they did years ago, all those other demos that they've done. There are issues with some early Unreal Engine 5 games with like stuttering on PC, like like shader stuttering, compiling shaders.
Yeah, it goes like flicker.
Yeah, or like when you're playing a game and there's like a little stutter or like thing, like there is like that's an issue that Epic, I assume, is working on, and other developers. But like that's something that is an issue with Unreal Engine 5. But outside of that, the visuals is a massive step up, and PS5 Pro and everything, PS6, next gen Xbox, all going to be minimum Unreal Engine 5. But with that said, Epic Games is also working on Unreal Engine 6. And what is Unreal Engine 6? Is it a more impressive version of Unreal Engine 5? Yes, like better visuals and whatever other features. And it's almost like they've got a lock on I guess cinematic game development, or games that have like super impressive visuals. CD Projekt Red are no longer using their own engine anymore. They've switched to Unreal for Witcher and the next Cyberpunk. Who else? There's like Microsoft's 343 Studios is now Halo Studios, and they're no longer using their proprietary engine. They're going to use Unreal Engine for future Halo games. So it's like everybody's switching to Unreal, like Sony's using it, everybody's using it. The only people that aren't using it is Bethesda. They still got their ancient creation engine.
Oh, that looks great, man. It looks sick.
Just to throw that out there, but So
I wish you could just kind of like fuse the customization and the
that's right.
how would you like the intricacies of Bethesda's engine? What is it? The creation engine with the graphical and
fidelity
the
and
terrain,
performance,
the level of terrain detail, the lighting and
character detail,
like just the foliage in the Unreal 5 is like some of the most impressive graphics.
Really, all we want is character faces.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, maybe the zoom in when you're talking to someone in Bethesda games wouldn't be as like jarring if it was in Unreal 5. I'd be like, oh look, that person's gorgeous, instead of this like looking at this like pastel kind of like mannequin that's like go on talk to me about Unreal 6.
All right, so yes, it's going to be a game engine, but it's going to be much more. This is Epic's CEO Tim Sweeney over at The Verge. So yes, Unreal Engine 6 will be more than a game engine. Sweeney says that the current plan for the next version of Unreal Engine is to combine the developer tools and platform that game studios and teams are using today with Fortnite's easy-to-use Unreal Editor. Unreal Editor in Fortnite is essentially a tool that you can use to make content for the game or even new modes. It's basically like a game creation tool that that anybody could theoretically use. And the reason they're doing that is because of a word that you probably haven't heard in a little while, and that word is the metaverse. Remember the metaverse?
Shit. Where? That's I'm getting attacked by memories of cryptocurrency and metaverse. Aww.
And so this is Tim Sweeney. Says the real power will come when we bring these two worlds together. So we have the entire power of our high-end game engine merged with the ease of use that we put together in the Unreal Editor for Fortnite. That's going to take several years, and when that process is complete, that will be Unreal Engine 6. So Unreal Engine 6, yes. So Epic has big plans because they're still working on the metaverse. And so these tools will give users and publishers the ability to shape and create an interactive and interconnected universe. Epic is working with Disney to create a persistent universe, which looks like an early version of what this is going to be. Tim Sweeney says that this digital Disney ecosystem is fully interoperates with the Fortnite ecosystem. And that's kind of, if that doesn't make much sense, basically what he's saying is that they're creating like this persistent universe with Disney, right? And it's built on Unreal Engine and with the Unreal Editor tools as well that are available in Fortnite. And it's basically like a metaverse where it's like a universe that Disney can continuously build out, but then users can continuously customize as well, or just like the stuff that we heard when Meta was all in on the metaverse with the Quest 2, and remember those hilarious videos that Zuckerberg put out.
Oh, that was funny. He's just lighting up Apple.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg's going through his like bad boy phase right now. He's changed the way that he dresses. He's like,
I kind of like it. It's more fun.
So do I. It's way more fun. He's wearing like oversized shirts.
Yeah, he's like full on like 90s. Like, yeah, he's like.
I feel like I can actually have a beer with him now.
Surfer dude that loves hip hop, right? That's the vibe he's going for.
Yeah, and now she's like strangling the competition in like jiu-jitsu stuff, and he's like, he'll kick your ass now. Zuckerberg's
like I would not step in the ring with him. So
no,
smart for Musk
Zuckerberg
to back
got
out
dangerous after selling everyone's information. Of course, that's he did that after. But go on.
Yeah, so Unreal Engine 6 is not going to be just a game engine. And even Tim Sweeney was saying that the Unreal Engine 6 marketplace, or like, where people can create 3D stuff and plug that into anything. He wants that to work with Unity engine. He wants to work that to work with Roblox. He wants that to work with Minecraft. He wants Epic's, it's called their Fab marketplace for fabricating assets and stuff like that. They want it to be basically, works on everything. This is all pie in the sky stuff until we actually see it working. The Disney and Epic partnership is worth a lot, and it's still happening. And he closes off by saying that, he's aware that the metaverse is not popular and is not a thing. But he does say like, it's like there's metaverse weather, Sweeney says. Some days it's good, some days it's bad, depends on who's doing the talking about it, which means that, he believes in it as a thing. And it makes sense because the Fortnite, like the problem with the whole metaverse thing was that they just created this word like as if it wasn't a thing that already exists. Like the when you describe, you're like, okay, so a VR chat room, right? And like, yes, that's exactly what you described, Fortnite. Like going into like the Fortnite events where you watch a concert, right? Isn't that the metaverse? Isn't that what you're talking about? And it kind of is. But like where they're trying to get to is like a persistent universe, and it just seems kind of like, Matrix level of, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like Ready Player One is what they were aiming for.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, like maybe in 10 years' time, there is some persistent world, but, we tried to make massive persistent worlds like that, and they end up feeling empty. There isn't... Like, look, Star Citizen is probably the closest thing to it right now, and
that's impressive. I mean, it is impressive, like, the scope of that. Like,
absolutely, but, like, what they're talking about is, like, you're going to be able to play every game within this game. Like, like you can have a tennis match in there. You can play like pool or billiards and like water polo and like, it's like we've got everything in here. It's like, well, it actually turns out you've got nothing in here, and this kind of stinks. And it's just the concept is, I believe we're eventually going to get to a Ready Player One metaverse persistent kind of universe thing where we've got games within games. But I think the concept is way ahead of its time. Like, given the current hardware, the performance that we can squeeze into specific footprints. Some of the most impressive, I was talking about Zuckerberg and how he'd probably beat me up. But he made some of the most impressive, like the new Meta Ray-Ban glasses. The amount, if you look at the clear ones, they're an engineering marvel. Like every single square millimeter is used inside of those glasses. Yeah, they're a bit chunky, but they're getting really close to the thinness of that. And that is just an example of you can only squeeze so much performance at the moment into a certain footprint. And if you want the processing power to be able to get through like a freaking persistent universe and traverse the stars in your bedroom with a pair of glasses, like you're not going to, we're not there yet. It's coming, but we're not there yet.
There's so many, like the problem with like explaining the metaverse as like a playground, right? Or somewhere where you can do this, play this game, or be this person, or have this experience. Is like the problem with that is that all that already, it kind of exists. Like if you want to play in a fantasy world, just play an RPG, right?
It's just fragmented.
Game. You want to play if you want to do it with others, jump onto World of Warcraft. It's been around for 20 years. You want to do, like even like VR stuff, like there's, all that exists, right? Like there's versions of it and it's all disconnected and disparate, but like there's nothing about having it all in one place that even seems like it's worth trillions of dollars of investment, because like it's like, okay, people don't really want that. People are so disjointed anyway. It's like you have your smartphone, you have your TV, you go to the work, you go do this, like everything is separate, right? Like and there's a lot of things should be separate. Like I want my games to be separate. Like if I'm going to play Diablo, I'm going to do it on my PC. If I'm going to play Metroid, I'm going to do it on my Switch. Like I don't want a metaverse where I can do everything. You know what I mean? Like,
but now I suppose we're getting into more so the like not
like what is it
it's like philosophical, I suppose. Like, do you want everything unified or that's I suppose that's another topic for another time. But let's move it along. We've only got a few stories left here. We're slowly running out of time, but of course going over time. It wouldn't be the TT show if we hit an hour.
We're doing okay for time. We should.
We're doing. I think we're doing well this episode.
I think we've actually done better than normal.
Yeah, that is. We are running above average. But let's talk about. Oh, you want to talk about that? Okay. Nintendo using PC emulation. What do we know?
Okay, what do we know is that they shut down Switch emulators left, right, and center on PC, and we discussed this at length in previous recent episodes about Nintendo's stance on piracy and how they're never really going to enter the PC market, but anything PC related, they're going to squash, right?
Obviously.
They have their virtual console on the Switch. You can play their classic games, or and even when it comes to the topic of video game preservation, Nintendo said it's illegal. Doesn't matter what the context of emulating their games on a PC is. It's copyright infringement. It's illegal and it harms innovation. Nintendo recently opened the Nintendo Museum in the Uji Kyoto Prefecture in Japan, and it's a very cool looking place with like interactive exhibits and celebrating the long and storied history of Nintendo. But then somebody posted on X, Chris Mac 32. He was visiting the Nintendo Museum, and there was a Super Famicom, which is the Super Nintendo, what looks to be Mario, the Super Mario World, what sounds like Super Mario World. Yeah, so it's a USB-C controller that you could actually unplug. So that's already a security issue, right? Because you could just plug any device into that. So so he unplugged the controller from this demonstration of classic Nintendo gaming.
What is he doing?
And you can hear the Windows USB sound. And the Windows USB sound when we just dun, that.
No.
It's like it's seared into
kidding. Hold on.
brain.
Let me hear it.
Yeah. Have a listen to it.
Oh my god! Wow! They are oh man, this got me fired up. Go, keep going.
Okay, this is why I wanted us to discuss it, because I know this would fire up. And so I'll just read from my article a bit. So Nintendo, the company that actively shuts down and pursues legal action when it comes to emulating its games and hardware on a PC, and let me make it clear that that's well within their rights. I'm not saying that they should stop or whatever, but they're using a Windows PC to emulate the Super Nintendo. This is ironic because Nintendo is against PC emulation, even when it comes to video game preservation. Like I said, they say it's illegal, unless of course you are the copyright holder apparently, then it's okay. Although we don't get to see the hardware it's hidden, the post does feature USB cable and the classic "you have removed a USB device" Windows sound. Now, it would make sense if Nintendo had set up Nintendo Switch consoles with its own virtual console or Nintendo Switch Online to include classic Nintendo games. Still, for a museum, and this is where I think where it becomes funny, you'd assume that Nintendo would have its classic games running on actual classic hardware, or at the very least ensure that visitors cannot unplug USB cables and potentially compromise their own security.
Oh, I'm filled with an overwhelming amount of joy.
It's just funny.
But it's also like kind of got like a feeling of melancholy at the same time. Because I feel bad for him, but I want to. This is funny. This is hilarious. It's like, oh, we can't do emulation unless it's us that is doing it. But the fact that this is in. If you took this exact same scenario and then you were just like, say at PAX, at Nintendo's event, it was found that they were using emulation. We'd be like, ha 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 ha, like, oh, you're using emulation. But because it's in a museum, the
Nintendo Museum.
And they're so stoked about this museum. God, they're so happy about it. But in the museum that is meant to, I think we did a week because it officially opened. You're meant to leave the museum thinking Nintendo is more than just a game developer, and like it's meant to highlight Nintendo's monumental achievements in the gaming space and gaming hardware space. But the fact that they're running emulation, or what appears to be emulation, you watch this get
because
copyright
it's hidden, right?
striked because
it's one of those things where it's just the controller cable coming out of like a cabinet or whatever the shell is. You know, it's like a custom shell. They're not going to show you a PC, right? So you can't actually see the PC, but the sound is unmistakable. That's the Windows
100%
USB sound. So why would they do that? Because it's obviously easier. Why do people emulate? And why do people emulate when there's no proper video game preservation? What's the point of a museum? It's to preserve history. Why don't you have actual 1990s hardware there or the 80s hardware there playable? So people with CRT TVs, era-specific displays and controllers, even you own the patents for things. Surely you can make them for the museum if you need to create more controllers that can connect to these old machines. And if you're not going to do that, then use your Nintendo Switch, Super Nintendo Mini console and your Nintendo NES Mini console that you released a few years ago. Use those devices. Use your own proprietary hardware. Like if you're going to use a PC to emulate stuff, maybe don't put those people that created that stuff into jail while you put that in a museum.
Practice what you preach. It's so funny. This photo of the what I'm sure is an adorable little girl enjoying some Super Mario. Behind that wall,
that makes sense for that to be emulation, right? Because it's a bespoke sort of like interactive display where you got giant controllers and you can tell.
But I reckon behind that wall is a bunch of GeForce cards.
Yeah, just running it.
I reckon there's like 4 5090s behind that wall just powering all of those displays. Or 4090s, sorry, not 5090s. But yeah, this is irony at its finest.
Also as well, like put this thought into your head. If you're Nintendo and you've made the decision to use Windows emulation, right? So that's a Windows PC with an emulator developed by programmers and enthusiasts over the years. Where are you getting the ROM file for the game? Are you using one of your cartridges that you're backing up digitally, or are you just like downloading it because it's easier just to download it from the internet? And I would put money on that. That would be so
funny if they pirated their own versions of their games.
I think they did. I think because they're the copyright holder, I think they just didn't see any issue with it.
Imagine if they because there's so much red tape.
But then they downloaded it and then they sent that side cease and desist.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. You stole it from me. Here's one better. Because Nintendo has so much red tape around like downloading, etc., of their ROM files for their games. Imagine if one side of like Nintendo that was sorting out the museum, they downloaded the ROM file from the website and then they sent themselves a cease and desist. Because
that's right. Like it was just like part of their ISP, like just tracking IP addresses, right?
Yeah, the system flags themselves.
Yeah, so then they got an email saying you've been downloading things from Nintendo, and
that wouldn't even surprise me.
So that was a funny story. I think it's just worth it's just a. Yeah,
well, here's a comparison. Here's an analogy. Ironic. Here's an analogy to highlight the irony of this is if you took any other museum, say Adelaide Museum, for example, or a museum that is dedicated to the preservation of dinosaur bones, but you walked in there and every single display was holograms of the dinosaur bones,
or just Lego.
It's just like, this is what they would look like. You'd be like, well, where are they? Like, where's the actual bones and stuff? It's like, oh, we don't have them here. No, we don't have them. Of course we don't have them. We just show you the hologram.
It was easier for us to just, go onto Amazon and just buy this like plaster kit.
Yeah, it's got the tag on it. You can see the Amazon box that they unpacked it behind.
Yeah, that's the ironic part, is that it's a museum.
Yeah, it's a museum.
It's like you said, if it's one thing to do it at a PAX or like a gaming convention, or even just like a behind the scenes demonstration where you're caught out or whatever, like it's just somebody in the company said, oh, this will be the quickest way for me to show it. I'll just show it on my laptop, blah blah blah, whatever the case is. Yeah, but to build a museum and then just bake in Windows PCs emulating your own hardware, on emulators that you say are illegal and should be, and they try to find ways to get rid of emulation, because the reason that they get rid of the Switch emulation is because they found like a legal thing in there where it's like, because you're copying what our custom hardware does and you're bypassing certain things. That's why it's copyright infringement. Like, it's not because the actual emulating like a hardware, like old hardware, isn't necessarily like illegal, right? Like, you can emulate, classic consoles and stuff without requiring proprietary technology to do so. Like, you can figure out, like, people can code their own versions of things. But that's how they shut down the Switch emulation, is by figuring out a way that the actual emulator infringes on copyright.
Yeah, it's
basically like a legal dance to try and figure out how to shut it down.
Yeah, even if this, like, there was just some old Nintendo, like there was another museum somewhere else in the world that wanted to host some of Nintendo's achievements, like the DS or whatever. Then it was exposed that they were doing emulation. I'd be like, okay, kind of like, still funny that it's a museum, but this is particularly funny because it's Nintendo's museum. Like, it's they built this. No one else built this.
Like, if you speak to like hardcore people that are into emulation, like my brother, like, he recently upgraded his old Game Boy Advances and Game Boy Colors with like brand new screens and displays, and modded like the circuit so you can run custom ROMs and things like that. And the reason he did that is because like the actual hardware, the original hardware, looks different. That's how most people view things, right? Like, like people that are super into emulation, they say, look, emulators don't play it exactly the same as the original hardware, and also LCD screens aren't the same as old CRT. So like, actual historical purists don't see emulation as a tool, but like, they would prefer actual hardware to experience this sort of stuff, which is why, like, as a museum, I would have expected there to be just like, how much cooler would it be just to walk in and be able to play like consoles from the 1980s, and they're all there.
Exactly what it should be.
And it's hardware from the 1980s, and it's displays from the 1980s.
That's what you would expect out of a museum.
And then you have your big giant controller stuff with emulation on it, but you have, if you want to play the game, like,
come to play the game. The Triple H.
Have you been watching that Mr. McMahon documentary series on Netflix?
No, but I do want to watch. It's really good. I can't believe I did that just then.
That's why I think maybe you've been watching, because I actually was watching it over the past week. Really? It's really, really good.
Oh yeah, that guy's a psycho. I do like him.
You have no idea. Like, he is next level psycho.
But yeah, let's wrap this show up with some quick science news I've got for you. We've been a bit light on the science side of things, but I found some stuff that I thought you guys might find interesting. This was a cool one that was emailed to me by some scientists over in South Korea. I get countless studies sent to me because of the coverage that I do, and unfortunately I don't have time to read through a lot of them, and I'm sure a lot of them are impressive. But this one was short, sharp, and shiny. They were very concise in the email, and the tech was actually kind of interesting. Like, so just a little bit of backstory, but biology inspires engineering probably more often than what we think. And this story is an example of that. So researchers took the impressive visual system that is in felines and in cats, and tried to replicate that with artificially through lenses, etc. Now, for those that don't know, cats are particularly impressive, have a particularly impressive vision system that enables them to see very well in well-lit environments and also in complete darkness. And they're able to do this, and I didn't know this, through an adaptation in their system where their pupil turns to a vertical slit during the day, and that essentially acts as like the aperture on a camera lens. So it's letting in a certain amount of light versus during darkness. During darkness, they become wide. The pupil widens, and a film. I just want to get this right. I'm not a biology expert by any means, but I will bring this back to the tech, I promise. So additionally, at night, a cat's eye would develop a reflective layer called a tapetum lucidum, which boosts night vision performance and gives the eyes the reflective glow that we all know. Now, South Korean researchers tried to replicate this entire process artificially. And the details are and the results are quite interesting. The team created a slit-like aperture designed to filter unnecessary light. So this is the vertical slit of the cat's eye, and assist which because of the filtering that is implemented into it, it is designed to help focus on specific objects during the day. So in a really overexposed room that is super bright, it's what they've designed is the device is able to hone in on an object and then keep its focus on that. As for darkness, while also creating a special reflective layer that is similar to the one found on a cat's eye. The team says its artificial protective layer also boosts nighttime vision performance. So this is from a quote from one of the professors.
That's pretty cool.
That's very cool, hey. Robotic cameras are often struggle to spot objects in busy or camouflaged backgrounds, especially when lighting conditions change. Our design solves this by letting robots blur out unnecessary details and focus on important objects. So, why the hell would we even want to do this? What's the benefit? Who cares? The team believe their creation will benefit devices that require visual input for object recognition, particularly autonomous robotics. However, it could also be applied to drones, security robots, self-driving vehicles, and other visual-centered devices. So if they can, instead of thinking
cats would
of
be
it,
good drivers,
go ahead.
basically. So like if cats were like driving all our Ubers, if cats were
obviously, yes,
piloting all the drones, I mean the world would be a very cuter, much more cuter place.
It would be cuter, but I think it would stink. it would
just be so cute.
it would smell awful. It would smell like piss everywhere.
I think if it's going to be for autonomous vehicles, they should just create make it like a robot cat.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this kind of like lens technology is very impressive for all of the applications that I listed previously, but particularly for self-driving vehicles. I think adapting, we're thinking about Tesla. Tesla doesn't famously doesn't like any of the LiDAR technology that a lot of competing autonomous vehicles use, and they've abandoned, I think it was for their parking or something like that, aspect of, be like self-parking.
Yep.
They don't like the LiDAR technology. They were going purely off visual analysis. So that's why the Teslas have so many cameras around the exterior of the car. Okay. And they don't have a lot of radars. And I think, well, if you're going to be heading in that direction, because I think they're right at the end of the day, like if you are able to capture the visual input of something, it really just comes down to your analysis of that. It's like if you have a very rigorous and impressive algorithm that is able to distinguish all of the differences in that visual data, then like that's as close to real life vision as what you're going to get. Like LiDAR technology seems really good for now, but at the 10, 15 years down the road, if we were just working on visual, it's probably going to end up being way better than what LiDAR could ever be. So that application is very exciting, and because vehicles are taken into multiple various different lighting conditions, some people might be driving across country in pitch black of night, and what if the Tesla has this lens technology, is able to distinguish, there is an animal that the driver cannot see about to jump into, especially in Australia where this is actually a problem, and in some states, select states in the US, where deer, kangaroos, like all of these things, they jump into the way. They jump in the way. And yeah, I just thought this was a cool bit of fringe technology. It's, I think, a long time before we'll see this in a product. But cat's eyes. Turned out very cool. Very cool.
Just as we knew all along.
Yeah, let's move on to some fluid that looks like something that I probably won't mention. But it has a strange resemblance to that stuff that comes out of Spider-Man's wrist. What is it called? Web?
It's called, because it's Spider-Man, Spider Spooge. That's it.
Oh, Spooge. Yeah. Spooge. Well, this stuff is stringy. And again, inspired by biology, science. A team of researchers at Tufts University Silk Lab penned a new study. It was published in the journal Advanced Functional Materials, and it is officially the first web-slinging technology. And yes, this is real. Spider-Man's web fluid is real. It is nowhere near the strength of what you see in the comic books or the movies. And it's actually nowhere near the strength of a typical spider web. However, it's real. It's real. So researchers took silky fibers from moth cocoons, which can then be reduced to the building block fibers called fibrion. Fibrion, I reckon that's how you would say that.
Yeah.
The fibrion is then combined with specific adhesives and shot out of an eye of a needle tip out of a device, and which creates a stream. And then shortly after the web fluid is fibered, it sticks to the object and then solidifies, making it possible to tether to certain objects. So this is
just like Spider-Man.
Literally what he does. And yeah, biologically inspired. Here's a statement from one of the researchers. If you look at nature, you will find that spiders cannot shoot their web. They usually spin the silk out of their gland, physically contact a surface, and draw out the lines to construct their webs. We are demonstrating a way to shoot a fiber from a device and then adhere to it and pick up an object from a distance. Rather than presenting this work as bio-inspired material, it's really a superhero-inspired material. So it's a direct
they could
reference to Spider-Man there.
This could be a toy line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you
parents would hate it because it'd be like those old
it'd be everywhere.
Like like the goo balls and that sort of stuff. The sludge things that kids love, where you throw it on the wall or whatever, and then your wall is destroyed.
Yep. And the very last story for you, very patient listeners out there. Elon has done it again. I just want to briefly talk about the week that Elon has had here. So he launches Starship, success. The robo-taxi event, so he's putting out autonomous taxis, which is that's also never been really done to the scale that he's planning on doing it. And then he demos humanoid robots, which were remotely controlled by humans, but regardless, they were walking around and interacting with people. So he's had a hell of a week. But let's talk about the first thing.
Even as remotely controlled, that's still impressive.
Absolutely. They're making drinks and playing games and stuff. It's this is a robot. Even if it is This is exactly what you would think, like humanoid robot, and there's like, oh, there it is. And yeah, it's very impressive. But I think what was the most impressive out of Elon's week was definitely Starship. And this is not something to be understated. I think this is one of the biggest achievements SpaceX, if not the biggest achievement SpaceX has done so far. And
I think you described this to me a year ago, like how it would work.
Yeah. I think it was in some of the first episodes of the TT show where I was talking about the roadmap SpaceX had for Starship, and we have now hit a point of where we're catching Super Heavy. And just a quick breakdown for those that aren't very familiar with what SpaceX are doing. So Starship is a 450-foot tall, I would get that in meters for you for any Australian listeners. Foot tall, foot to meters. Oh, wait. Let's do Starship height. 400 foot. And that is 121 meters. And it is broken up into, it's so big. It's so big. It's broken up into 2 stages. You got the first stage and the second stage. The first stage is the booster, and that is called Super Heavy. And that is literally half of it. So actually, it's more than half. It's 250 foot tall. There are 233. I'm not sure. The Super Heavy changes. But yeah, over 200 feet. So more than half of the entire rocket is a booster. And then you've got the second stage, which is Starship, where you put all your cargo, maybe people one day, etc. And then we have been leading up to catching Super Heavy, and I'm guessing eventually we're going to catch Starship as well. I'm not really clear on the details there, but the goal is to turn Starship into a rapidly reusable rocket at the frequency of Falcon 9, which is I think it's the most used rocket in terms of mass to orbit on the planet right now. It is SpaceX's workhorse rocket. It's the rocket that takes cargo to the International Space Station. SpaceX envisioned that Starship will eventually reach this level of launch catch frequency. We've seen previously like Falcon Heavy, which is that really cool, I think I've played the video on the show previously, of the dual rocket system that splits apart and then lands individually at the same time autonomously.
Right.
That's really, really cool. It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. But this is, it doesn't really do it justice, the footage, at least the wide footage, because you can't really see how big Super Heavy is.
It still looks so crazy. I just watching the video, and like how it comes down and it gets caught is just...
Yeah. It's honestly, it's. I wrote in my story, it is the equivalent of catching a 3-story. Is it 3-story or 5-story? Where's my story? Where's my story? That's funny. Where is?
Yeah, like catching a building. Yeah.
It's like catching a building.
But not only that, but it's like the boosters and like. Have you ever played that game? It's like a really old game called
Kerbal Space
Lander.
Program.
No, this is ancient. It's like called Lunar Lander. Basically it's like you got to land like a rocket, right? And you got like a small target zone, and it's basically free falling, and then you got to use your booster to like, to counteract the gravity. But then also like you can just switch like left and right, just little bits to try and get it to that spot to like land it. And it's just like, it's so difficult because you just realize that when you're dealing with that many, like, just like trying to land something on a specific spot, but like to also land with enough booster force that you don't actually crash, as well. Like it's just to highlight that it's not like even just a lander rocket is just, it's not a shape or something that's like, it's designed to take off. Right?
Absolutely.
Like that's what a rocket is.
100%.
Right? Like it's the most efficient takeoff thing, because you want to break orbit or break through the atmosphere, you got to have a rocket to take off, right? But like to actually like land it or fly it around, like it's the most it's not designed for that. It's like the worst design you can think of for landing.
And the bigger they are, the harder it is, because your margin of error becomes smaller, because even the slightest changes to its speed, its orientation in the air ends up on the end of that graph ends up being a massive change. So it's very difficult. This really, I tried my best when I was writing the article. I'm like, how can I convey the impressive nature of catching this? Super heavy, and sorry, it is just a little correction, is 233 foot tall rocket booster, which is the equivalent of a 20-story building. And at the time of catch, I don't know how much propellant is left in Super Heavy, so I can't give a specific on the weight, but it at least weighs, Super Heavy completely empty without propellant is multiple tons, we're talking. So I wrote perhaps an analogy that lines up with SpaceX's description of Mechazilla's arms, which is the massive tower. And SpaceX call the Mechazilla's arms the chopsticks, is Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid catching a fly mid-air with his chopsticks. That is pretty much what SpaceX has done, but instead of the fly, it's a 20-story building that weighs multiple tons.
I'm just like, even just like the arms being able to support that and like that landing thing, like even if it came, you know, if it's like 3 degrees off, right, and then it like smacks into the arm at an angle that it just destroys like its balance or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just seems like it has to be so precise.
Oh, dude, I think I was saying last week
because it's just 2 like sticks, right? So it's
it's 2 sticks that I should probably describe what has happened for the audio listeners. But so picture a rocket coming down right next to a tower, but attached to this tower is 2 support poles that are coming out. I would say, let's just say forward, facing the rocket, and the rocket slides right in between those 2 support towers as they are closing simultaneously to catch it and support it with its feet. It's some of the most impressive stuff I've seen tech-wise, because the margin for error and also the stakes for this launch. This is flight 5. This is the highest stake launch that they have done. Right. If this was, like you said, 3 degrees off or whatever the margin of error was, the tower would have been destroyed, and that holds up all kinds of development problems. Now, what is this? Like, okay, what's the next step from here? Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if SpaceX has even said what the next test is. I'm guessing to do this again. I think they're probably going to build another Mechazilla tower and get that done soon. So in the event of this one ever being destroyed, which, look, more likely than not, it probably will be. This was... It seems like a fluke.
Yeah, this is like a test, right? But then also, like, 1, do it again, but then B, do it again with the same rocket.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they'll make design changes, like improvements to it, to Super Heavy at least. But also the Starship, the second stage, that splashed down without a problem in the ocean. That was no dramas there whatsoever. This is a part of the overarching goal to eventually put humans on the surface of Mars. But before they even attempt that, Starship needs to take the first returning humans back to the surface of the moon as part of NASA's Artemis 3 mission, which is scheduled to happen... Where did I write that? I think it was next year. No, sorry, by 2026. So
right,
this is all a part. Starship has big plans ahead of it, and being able to catch it and not have to build a new Super Heavy booster every single time we launch one of these things dramatically reduces costs, dramatically reduces production, increases the frequency of which SpaceX can launch. So huge achievement from SpaceX there, and we will continue our coverage on Starship's development. It seems to be moving fast.
To Mars.
Thank you very much for listening. I think that's about it that we have for this show. We have wrapped up right on cue, the 2-hour mark. Thank you very much for tagging along. If you've made it this far, definitely, surely if you've made it this far, you like what we're talking about. So give the video a like, go subscribe, maybe turn on the bell, who knows, get a bit crazy. And we will be back next week with another roundup of the hottest tech news, science, space, whatever else that we find interesting. So yeah, sign off with whatever you like, my friend.
Oh yeah, till next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.